Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Tech of the Month, our monthly roundup of the hottest, most kicking fresh kit to land at BikeRadar HQ ahead of testing. Today I'm going to be talking you through Rapha's Explore Powerweave gravel shoes. That is indeed correct, gravel specific footwear is now a thing. I'm also going to talk you through these fabulous, rather jazzy, rather loud, custom Oakley sunglasses. Stay tuned for the price, because I suspect it'll really annoy you. Finally, I've also got this lovely little Pedros Chain Breaker, which you, our beloved audience, recommended as perfect to complement my fashionable tool roll in a previous video. We'll also have my colleague Warren Rossitor tuning in to talk us through the key details you need to know about SRAM Rival AXS, the world's cheapest wireless group set. Now, of course, before we get stuck into all of this, I have to remind you to like, subscribe, and tickle the little bell icon so that every time we upload a video like this, you will get a notification. Now, we're going to kick things off with the Rapha Explore Powerweave shoes, which launched last month. Now, before we get stuck in, I should say there is a full review of these shoes on BikeRadar.com. I was riding them for about a month before they launched, and you can read my full impressions in the link in the video description. Now, my key findings with riding these is that the knitted upper is genuinely delightful. It's got a really lovely form-fitting kind of hugging feel on your foot, which is wonderful for long days in the saddle. The blocky tread on the sole of the shoe is also tenaciously grippy. However, the flexible sole won't appeal to racers, and I'm also a little bit bummed out that on what's claimed to be a gravel bikepacking shoe, you don't see replaceable or repairable lugs. Now, the shoe is based on the Explore, just the plain Explore, which launched in March 2019. The Powerweave upper first debuted on the brand's road shoe the following year. Now, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of exactly how the knitted upper is made, but it is much like you're seeing on brands like Nike with their running shoes. It's a polyester knit that has reinforcement fibers throughout it to stop it getting quite so easily damaged throughout riding. Now, I should acknowledge the existence of other reviewers out there. They have noted that the upper is a little bit fragile when it comes to things like thorns catching them. I personally haven't experienced any such issues, and in particular, I actually found that the front of the shoe, which has a thermoplastic reinforcement inside the toe box, actually does a really good job of protecting your toes. One thing I particularly like about these shoes is that the tongue is totally free to move. There's no weird elastic straps inside, which means getting them on and off is super easy. Again, I wish more shoe brands did this. One thing I don't like is on the insole, Rapha has a little motivational quote. Now, they have previous history doing this. I reviewed a weird insulated jacket from them a couple of years ago and had an absolutely abysmal poem from Alex Howes. This little statement is the gravel equivalent of a live, laugh, love stencil, and Rapha, please stop doing this. It's just naff. It almost goes without saying, but the knitted upper is very, very breathable. Now, for kind of wintry spring conditions in which I've been testing these shoes, it isn't perfect. They are very airy, and in rain, they soak through almost immediately. On the other hand, if you were doing bike packing, that's maybe not necessarily such a bad thing. A traditional solid upper tends to absorb water and can take quite a great deal of time to actually dry out. If you're bike packing, you get your feet soaking wet in these shoes, realistically, these will dry overnight, if not quicker. Retention is taken care of by two BOA Li2 dials. Now, what's different about these is instead of the usual kind of stainless steel plastic coated wires, they've gone for a fabric lace. This Dyneema reinforced lace is absolutely wonderful. I really like it, and it's one of the true highlights of this shoe. In the past, I've kind of kinked the wire in a BOA dial, and though they are quite easy to replace, you just don't have that issue with this shoe. I'd love to convert all of my shoes to this, and I really hope that more brands adopt it. Now, one thing that does disappoint me a little bit about this shoe is the non-replaceable sole. I'm well known for advocating for repair wherever possible, and I have to say that Rapha is not in a minority here. The number of brands that offer shoes with replaceable lugs are a depressing minority. However, Rapha makes a really big point about its repairability program. They will repair most of their kit for free for the lifetime of the product, and that is totally admirable. But these shoes and their soles are not covered. Now, I put this question to Rapha, who said that with the natural rubber outsole, you're going to get a really long lifespan out of these shoes, and that is probably totally true. But they will wear out, because shoes do. And the only thing that wears out cycling shoes is walking in them. And given that these shoes are designed for bike packing and adventure riding, where walking will make up a significant part of your adventures, it's a little bit disappointing. That said, the soles are very, very grippy. I love the little rubber portion on the arch of the shoe, so if you're kind of getting from a standing start, you can place your pedal there and it doesn't slip. And the insole is not reinforced along the full length of the shoe. It ends just short of the heel and just short of the toe, which when you're walking is lovely, but on the pedal, it just is a little bit too flexible for kind of competitive riding. That is just a really brief overview of all of the really nerdy techie details I went into when reviewing these shoes. They are £260. You can let me know how that makes you feel in the comments. And of course, please do go read that full review on BikeRadar.com. The link is in the description. I have to admit something to all of you. I want to be honest with the audience, and I want you to trust my every word. So this is my bit to you. I have a problem. I have too many cycling sunglasses, and I did not need to get these wonderful custom Oakley Sutros, but I couldn't help myself because I could spec them as ugly as I wanted. We recently reported on BikeRadar.com that Oakley was expanding its custom sunglasses program to include 14 of its most popular models, including the likes of the Jawbreaker, the EV0, and the Sutro. As an industry insider, paid up cycling Illuminati member, I've had a chance to spec up my own pair, and I've gone for the most fabulously clashing design possible. With purple lenses, yellow arms, orange frames, little green Oakley logo, and an highlighter yellow green nose piece. These go with absolutely none of my kit, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If you want to go for a more austere look, or an even more wild one, according to Oakley, there are over 40 million different options to go for with its configurator. Now, the Sutros themselves are really nice glasses. They give you genuinely goggle-like protection. They are very big, and the optics are very clear. In terms of all-day comfort, I think the Smith Wildcat, which is my all-time favourite pair of sunglasses, probably just slightly edge these out, only because the Smiths have rubberized arms and also a rubberized nose piece, so they don't tend to slide down your face if you're a hot and sweaty young man like me. Now, the turnaround for the custom program was genuinely really quick. It was probably less than a week from ordering to them showing up at my door, and they actually don't command too much of a premium over a stock pair of sunglasses. But they certainly are not cheap. This pair of glasses, as pictured, would set you back £157 or $191, which is a lot of money. I'm not convinced I could ever bring myself to spend £160 on a pair of sunglasses, but when you look as cool as this, maybe it's a premium worth paying. Money no object, how would you spec up your pair of Oakleys? What colours would you go for? Would they be this jazzy or something more austere? Or would you just buy 20 pairs of much cheaper glasses for the same price? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, before we talk about this thrilling chain breaker, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Warren, who's going to talk you through SRAM Rival AXS.
Thanks, Jack, and now on to the big tech news this month. It seems as if SRAM are on a bit of a roll at the minute. Last month they brought more affordable wireless shifting for mountain bikes with the release of their Eagle GX axis group set, and this month they're doing the same on the road with the new wireless Rival AXS. For those of you unfamiliar with SRAM's nomenclature, Rival sits below Force, which sits below Red, so it's currently the most affordable wireless group set. Whilst this may not seem like a big deal, updates like this may be the early beginnings of the death of cables on high-end group sets, but hold on to your cable-actuated pitchforks as we're not quite there yet. Anyway, let's quickly run through the highlights before we go into the more important details. As I've already mentioned, it's the cheapest road wireless group set ever from SRAM. Like Force and Red, Rival is also 12-speed, and it works with the same ETAP shift logic as all the other AXS group sets. That means you use one shifter to go up the cassette and the other one to go back. Press them both together and you move the front derailleur in either direction. 1x and 2x options are available, including a wide option like on Force and Red. In terms of weight, the group set is only 300 grams heavier than Force AXS, which we think is pretty good considering the price. Regarding the price, and remember these are the full RRP figures, Rival AXS will cost you £1,314 for the 2x and £1,104 for the 1x. If you like to mix and match your components, you're pleased to know that Rival AXS has full AXS compatibility. That means it will work with Force, Red, and it'll even work with the mountain bike Eagle group sets. So if you had a Red AXS group set but wanted a cheaper training cassette and you didn't want to wreck your fancy Red model, you could buy a Rival cassette as a more affordable option. Finally, as you'd expect, it gets the full SRAM AXS app support for custom shifted controls. With the highlights out of the way, let's look into some of the important details. First up, gearing. Just like their flagship Red AXS group set, SRAM have changed the way we think about gearing by concentrating on a wider edge cassette at the back. In the case of Rival, that's a 1030 or a 1036 tooth cassette. This means they've been able to reduce the chainring sizes at the front. Rival's largest chainring setup is a 3750, which with the aforementioned cassette gives a similar range to a more traditional 5339. Why is this important? Well, SRAM is claiming to offer a wider spread of gears at the top end, for example when climbing the steepest hills or going flat out with a tailwind. But crucially, where we spend most of our time on the cassette, the gaps are kept close, using just one tooth jumps. The theory being that you get the maximum range and the best refinement in one group set package. By now you're probably thinking Rival AXS sounds a little too good to be true. There must be some cost cuts. So let's go over those. The main cost reduction comes from the materials used. There's lots and lots of carbon fibre in Red and Force. Instead, Rival uses aluminium, steel or nylon. As we've already mentioned, this adds 300 grams to the overall weight. The other difference, aside from the materials, is in the shifters themselves. The Rival units forego the 2 additional ports that both Force and Red carry to add satellite shifters. The hoods also remove contact point adjustment for the brakes, though they do retain clever reach adjustment for the levers. If you're completely wedded to the idea of secondary shifters, that may be a bit of a kick in the guts. That said, if you're used to mechanical groups, then you've probably never missed them. But despite all those compromises, SRAM are keen to state that Rival shifting mechanics, so the motors, the chipset, the antennas, all the electronics, are exactly the same as the pricier premium groups. So while Rival may cost you some weight and a few bells and whistles, the shifting is claimed to be just as good. I've been lucky enough to spend quite a lot of time riding Rival AXS, and I put a full test together, which you can see on this card here or in the description below. Anyway, what do you think? Is Rival AXS something you'd be interested in? Have you been waiting for wireless to become more affordable? Or is it still not quite what you're after?
Thank you very much, Warren. And of course, if you do want to read more about that group set, there's the full review and news story on BikeRadar.com, the link's in the video description, or alternatively, there's of course the video. So a few weeks ago, we did a video about what the BikeRadar team carry with them on a ride. We talked through my very fashionable tool roll, and the one omission from that tool roll was a chain breaker. Now, to give some background, most riders are perfectly satisfied, and rightfully so, with a normal multi-tool, which usually will include a chain breaker. Now, due to my role, I am very lucky. I do get to test lots of different bikes, and I'm also a compulsive fiddler. I much prefer this separate PB Swiss 470 kind of hex key bit set. It's got a little hex key, an adapter, and 6 different bits, and it's way easier for doing things like adjusting saddles, messing around with handlebars, that kind of thing. I much prefer it for my job. Because I go with that setup, it meant I didn't have a chain breaker, so I put a call out to our beloved audience, who all suggested almost unanimously the Pedros 6-pack. Now this fits my needs perfectly. The chain pin breaker itself is operated with a 4mm hex key, which means, though this comes with this nice little rubber holder and a hex key, I could actually ditch this and just use the hex key with my PV Swiss tool. I also think if I do break a chain, this will be much easier to use than your kind of integrated chain breaker. It has got a handle on there, which also includes some little spoke keys, but I think this is really the solution for me. The tool itself feels really nicely made, as most of Pedro's tools tend to, and I think those spoke keys are going to be pretty useful. They're deep enough that you're going to get a really good bite on the nipples. That sounds really weird, whatever. But compared to a narrower one, which can sometimes shear a seized nipple, I think this could actually work quite well. Thank you once again to our beloved viewers for suggesting this. I really do think it's the solution for me. And do let me know what you take in your tool roll or your tool bag in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please let us know any tech you'd like to see in a future edition. I finally had my hair cut for the first time in quite some months, so I'm looking forward to no comments whatsoever talking about my appearance. Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe and click that bell icon, so every time we upload a video like this, you'll get a notification.